the Burlington Manual Training Industrial School, which I was a former student from 1950 to 1954, the year just before it closed. This private boarding school in Burlington that was the only school of its kind back in the 1880s, early 1900s, dedicated to black education. It's called the Burlington Manual Training Industrial School, Tuskegee of the North. And it also became an historical site under the State National Registry. The Burlington School was opened for an institution of education for colored youth. The years from 1884 to 1886 to 1897. The beginning years, Commander Stewart of Battleship Ironsides owned the property. When he passed away, the family, he deemed the property to be used as an educational institution for colored youth. However, the educational aspect of the school and interest was started by an ex-slave, Reverend Allen Simpson Rice of North Carolina. He joined the military, and after being discharged, he became a minister and an educator. And he started tutoring students in the city of Burlington. Of course, the town didn't mind because it was separated. Back in 1886, he was doing so well, and it became such an important part of the life and lifestyle during that times that the city official didn't mind because they were separated. So the Board of Education started funding him. Then he became more popular and needed larger space, more space. So the state arranged with the daughter of Commander Stewart to lease the property. That was his home, which was greater space, more space, and open it up with have more students, and to create an industrial vocational school, an academic school, and a school be used as a cadet corps for military discipline. The military discipline, the cadet corps, the people that were participating in that was a very famous and popular school in Burlington called the Boys Military Institute, BMI. Training came from them and also personnel from Fort Dix. Students there had to take two forms of discipline, so-called. We had a creed, a statement of philosophy, and fundamental aims. They were guide marks and what guided the students and personnel through the school during their term. You could take a 4-year course in academic work and get a trade, cadet corps training, military training, and also vocational training. 2-year course, predominantly was a vocational course, 2 years. Now it trained not only children, it also trained adults. Like during the early years, it had like a preschool. Adults could come and leave their children there, and they were put in groups, getting an education, and then it went from groups to junior high school. Then from a junior high school to a senior high school. That means you would have wound up with a high school diploma. The vocational aspect of the school, Booker T. Washington was recruited back in 1913 to get involved in the vocational aspect of the school, to coordinate that with the academic. See, some of the aspects of this thing was critical because the Board of Education deemed the school to be vocational, manual training. Well, during those times, coming up from the South, that's basically all what was needed, what we could do. That's all they figured we could do. But that ain't so. It took academics to figure out to figure out the vocational work. It took math and psychology and reading and writing to figure out that, But they don't include that. They said they want to put it under vocational department. See, it should have been included in that title, academic. But who's to change the powers to be? Nonetheless, That was what was carried on through the years. And well, anyway, had a very high class vocation, academic program. So Booker T. Washington helped coordinate the vocational end with the academic. The principal that was there, that started it academically, was Reverend Rice. After he started that, he left Bordentown and went to New Brunswick and started another private school. I already needed a principal, so they hired Professor Gregory from Howard University. He was good in academic work. He wasn't too keen in vocational. However, so after a period of time, he handed in his resignation, and they hired another educator called Valentine, Principal Valentine, who was raised and educated in Mount Clair, East Orange area. He also attended Harvard University and also Tuskegee Institute, taught there. So he had a good rounded idea of vocational and academic. So he was hired. And that's how the school took off in both academic and vocational. You couldn't have one without the other. It was a private school, you had to pay to go there. Students just didn't pick up and go there, but usually the ones that was in sort of depressive state, lower income area, families separated and that sort of thing, they were more or less chosen first, such as myself. I was put together and took a tour, dry run at the school in Bordentown, and was escorted around. And before I know it, my time came to enroll and pay my tuition, and I was there. Of course, getting there, you were guided by the faculty and staff who were very versed in both Southern life and Northern life. And as you can see, the faculty and staff on the wall there, they were educated both in academic and vocational. Some of the faculty and staff knew a trade and taught academic subjects. Because students we had to take a half a day of trade and a half a day of academic work. Some of the more I hate to say outstanding students, but more students that made an impression at the school. Alex Haley, his brother George Haley, he came to the school to visit his father, who was working there in the agriculture program from Michigan State. He was so excited about the school and its function and what it was doing, he quit his school in Michigan and came there to graduate. And he became a lawyer and politician. After his successful years as a lawyer and getting into politics, he was given the position of ambassador to Gambia by Al Gore. Coming down the list was Paul Robeson from Princeton. He, Rutgers University, Columbia University, became a lawyer. He was discouraged because the secretary wouldn't take his minutes, so he got into acting and singing. He was a great motivator speaker and commencement speaker at the Bordentown School. William J. Hasty, one of our first black federal judges, he taught at the school, at the Bordentown School. Thomas Edison, who had a financial scholarship for students who excelled in chemistry and science. Albert Einstein, there's a picture of him on the campus visiting with his entourage. He was interested in the civil rights action of the school and also our music. Have you ever heard of a hardworking black dentist who invented the golf tee? His name was Grant. He was attending Harvard University. He was interested in golfing, so he invented the golf tee. He needed a helper, a caddy. His son wasn't interested, so who was interested? His daughter. She was going to Radcliffe. After finishing Radcliffe, you can see her teaching at the Bordentown School. Of course, coming over, Susan Rice, she was known to be the direct descendant of the founder of the school. I guess she never knew about the school because Reverend Rice had two families. Growing up in the South, then he was chased out of the South, so he came north and settled in the North. So that part of the family where Susan Rice was part of, she could be part of that. but she's definitely the direct descendant of the founder, Reverend Rice. You heard of John Dewey. John Dewey, the noted professor and psychologist from Columbia University. He was interested in that type of school. In his book, Schools of Tomorrow, he wrote about that school. He visited there in 1938. And he was a great inspiration for the school. As you notice, all these people that are involved in the school, that was part of the education and uplift and motivation to keep students interested. And it really did, because you never knew, everything that came was on a higher level of interest. So that interest of wanting to learn and to be there and to complete your education was set there, so set. And those that didn't make it, didn't want to make it, didn't make it. Of course, all schools are like that. There was a waiting list to get in. 200 or 300 students was there at one time. It was co-ed, by the way, girls and boys. So there was nothing to do but to stay focused. Coming down some of the trade, culinary for the girls and beauty culture. You heard of Fisk University? Fisk University, one of our famous black colleges, known as for the Jubilee Singers, who raised money throughout the world. This is the band leader of the school, Mr. Fred Work, for he came to Bordentown to teach music. Mrs. Joe Lewis, she visited there. You heard of Joe Lewis, that's his wife. Ben Johnson, you ever heard of Ben Johnson? During the 34 Olympics, he was a sprinter, along with Jesse Owens and Carl Lewis. He was president of track and field at Columbia University. Charles Ray, the senior coach there from Bates College. One of his famous students who graduated went to Los Angeles City College and was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. His name was Donald Bishop. Mary Malide Bethune, Daytona Beach, Florida. She had a women's college, but it became co-ed because some of the students that graduated from the Bordentown school went to her college and got their degrees. Eleanor Roosevelt, that's a picture of her on the campus, holding a seminar. One of the former students that graduated got his degree in physical education, and in this school down in South Carolina, one of his students was Commander Bolden, one of our first black astronauts. See? So he was responsible for that. Another one, the grounds of sculpture, who installed and built our monument. These are some of the pictures that they do, that kind of work they do. The diamond that was put on the monument was imported from Zimbabwe, Africa. The Bordentown Historical Society, they went out of existence for a while, but they reorganized. And they started a series of untold stories about 3 years ago in Bordentown about the residents and people of Bordentown. Now here's a lady here, Connie Goddard, PhD. That's her interest in boarding schools. She's a scholar, and her parents went to a type of school like this out in the Midwest. So she now lives in Coast Neck. She took it upon herself to do projects about that school. So walking through Bordentown, there wasn't any monument or memorial on the post or in Bordentown on the street. So I told her about it. She got with the Bordentown Historical Society, and there was a banner put up on the main street in Bordentown with the other banners. There was also one put up about Commander Stewart, who owned the property. Of course, there was also a banner put up on school number 2 in Bordentown, which is one of those buildings designated for blacks to go to. This is what the building looked like. Now here you see the picture of Miss Louise Galloway running the museum. Here's one of the former graduates, Johnson, Theodore Robinson. Graduated in '50. Became a marine biologist through the military. Interviewed by Ebony magazine. He was interested in his profile that he wanted to make another one to send to Russia. They had a project up there in Antarctic to do. Commander Stewart and the Bishop Constitution, who owned the property. This lady, Miss Goddard, Benelpin, New Jersey, had a display up there at their library. She arranged for a table for the manual training Bordentown school. And I was there and put on the display. So it shows her interest in that type of school. Here's another, here she is again. She arranged for the Bordentown Armory to have a display. There she is speaking, there I am. Most important part of that display here is, I was in the Marines for 3 years, never saw a black officer. Here they are here, high-ranking officers. First time I seen, I was so excited, I didn't know whether to salute them or bow. But there they are. See my smile on my face? Here she is again, Miss Goddard. Here's another former student who graduated, William Clark. He was from Camden, New Jersey. He had athletic inspirations to be an athlete. Well, he was barely 4 foot high, but he was so in tune of being an athlete because he was too small, So after he graduated, he went and got his doctorate in physical education and connected with the Senior Olympics. And here he is, stayed with the Senior Olympics, getting awards and medals. He's a former graduate of the Bordentown School. Another former student that graduated, his name was Richard Timbers. His mother and his uncle and he himself graduated from that Bordentown School. He was also the historian of Burlington City. There is, you see a picture of him in American Legions. He was also a photographer. The interest in closing the school started 4 years before it closed, back in 1950. The governor appointed a committee. However, when it closed, it became opened up as a Johnstone Research Medical Center. Now, fortunately, it was a medical center that integrated with no problem. Took care of special needs and medical experiments and all that. That stayed on about 20 years. That closed. Then it came under the Justice Juvenile Commission and became a detention center. And that's what it's partially being used as we speak today.